Ah,
I'm going to ask everyone to please mute yourself. We do have some little bit of housekeeping before we get started. First of all, I'm Nancy Noble, and I'm the host of today's talk with Nancy Hayes Hills. So we have two Nancys here, or maybe even more. I want to welcome all of you for the Friends of Calligraphy and for our lecture series. So the housekeeping is please back to the housekeeping. Please stay muted. And also, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and preclude them with three back to questions. Put them in the chat, start it with three question marks. That way, when I go through and I look at them, I will, if they can hold, we'll wait till later. And if they're current to what we're talking about, I will go ahead and ask Nancy at that time. So let's get started. Nancy Hills Hayes, Nancy
Or
Hayes
Hazel.
Hills, excuse me, get it backwards. Nancy Hayes Hills joins us this morning from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is a great honor to welcome you as our first speaker of 2026. And this is the sixth year of the Friends of Calligraphy lecture series, envisioned by our FOC president, Evelyn Eldridge. Evelyn, raise your hand. At the start of COVID, we were talking about the fact that everybody is home and we're working from home now. We can't go anywhere. And Evelyn had this great idea of asking people from around the world to come and talk and share their stories, share their history of calligraphy or what it is that they do. And so that's how we started this lecture series. Nancy is a member of many guilds, including ours, Friends of Calligraphy, the Chicago Calligraphy Collective, the Cream City Calligraphers and Paper Arts, and the Portland Society of Calligraphy, among other guilds. Just a little background on Nancy. As a fifth grader, Nancy was selected to take art classes each Saturday through Carnegie Mellon University. This continued throughout her high school years. What an amazing opportunity for a gifted young person. Nancy earned her bachelor's degree in Spanish with a minor in religious studies. And after many years as a graphic designer, she retired in 2020, freeing up more time to focus on her calligraphy and her art journals, which we get to see today, as her work as a deacon. In 2019, while many of us attended Rendezvous at Bishop's University outside of Montreal, I had the opportunity to view some of Nancy's journals. Wow, they were striking. I had been fortunate to take two of Nancy's journal workshops online. By the way, Nancy will travel here to the Bay Area in September to teach a 3-day workshop for Friends of Calligraphy. More information to follow. Stay tuned. Her work has been showcased in Letter Arts Review, Bound and Lettered, and in Alphabet. So if you happen to have the Winter 2016 volume of Alphabet, you will be able to see additional work that Carl has highlighted in her article. So if you have this one, Winter 2016, check it out. There's more work there. Welcome, Nancy, and thank you for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you now, and I will spotlight you so that everybody can see you.
All right. Thank you. You make me sound like such a big famous person. It's kind of funny.
Well, we're honored to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here. Um, and it's delightful. And as soon as I can figure out how to actually see the spotlighting, we'll be in good. There we go. All right. So thank you, Nancy, for that introduction. And the only other thing I would add to that is that my journals, I think what has touched people over the years is that they simply started out as a place for me to record my thoughts or notes or class notes or recipes or quotes from books that I found or little doodles in preparation for drawing something else. And over the years, they just simply grew into a kind of a personal journey or a record book of where I'd been and what had happened in my life. And a lot of it, instead of keeping a written journal, which I really have never been very good at, I I just started doing little pictures that would remind me of life events. And before you knew it, I had 30 plus years worth of journal pages. And I never intended for those to be shown anywhere. But thanks to Carl Roars and I think it was Randy Hassan as well at a Colorado conference many, many years ago, um, he had seen me working in them and asked if he could take a look. And this was during one of the like show and share nights. And so I had given it to him to look at. And before I knew it, there was like a crowd of people looking over his shoulder, which really threw me because these were not public things at all in my eyes. And I didn't know quite what to make of that. But over the years, it became apparent that there was something in whatever I was putting down that was touching people. And being a pretty introverted person, usually, I I wasn't sure I wanted all of that shown. But the more I thought about it and the more I saw the effect it was having on certain people, I kind of let that go a bit. And so gradually began to share them. And some of the stuff, actually, most of the stuff in my journals is very personal. It chronicles the deaths of my parents and my breast cancer journey, my journey through ordination while I was going through breast cancer treatment. So all sorts of the things that make me get put in the journal. And I have, a spiritual and religious background and flavor to my life. So there's a lot of that in there. There's also a lot of humor, things that I found interesting. Occasionally, world disasters make it in there if they were particularly jarring to me. In one of my early journals, there was I've forgotten when it was now, but there was a huge earthquake and tsunami in Japan that just washed away so many people. And things like that moved me got in there. And so what you'll see when I go to the presentation is kind of a chronological snippets of my life. And the first 20 or so years are contained in two large journals. And I tell you, they were probably just too big. It took me way too long to finish them. But after that, I started playing around with different kinds of journals, trying to find one that was commercially available that I didn't have to make myself. And so I have about 4 different journals going, all with different papers in them. And so the chronology is a little different in those. And the other thing I want you to notice as we go through the journals is that, we change and grow. And so my drawing styles change and grow with me. And everything is an evolution. So some of the stuff I'll show you at the beginning is not very good. It's not good art, it's not good lettering or anything, but it doesn't matter. It was simply a record for me. And taken as a whole, the whole body of the book, yes, becomes art. Individual pages, some are great, some are not. And it really doesn't matter. That's not the purpose of a journal. Your journals are not showcases, they're simply places to record stuff. So, anyway, with that, I am going to try to get into sharing my screen and seeing if we can go through the journals. And if you do have a question about a page or something, type it in the chat, starting with those 3 question marks, and someone will be monitoring the chat. And if it's something that would be helpful to have answered for everybody's benefit, one of the hosts will break in and ask the question. If not, we can address those questions more at the end. So let's see what we got. Let me try sharing my screen. Well,
You had it for a minute.
yeah, that was weird. I'll try that again. I saw it come up and then disappear. All right.
That's interesting.
Well,
What's
that's
going on?
interesting.
Yeah,
Doing that in
it
my test.
popped up and then it disappeared.
Oh, here, let me try one more time and I won't touch anything.
There you are.
Are you there? You can see
Full
that?
screen. Full screen.
Awesome. Okay. So, as I said, this is page 1 of the very first journal. And as you can see, that's not great art. That's just doodling and simply handwriting and notes. And at the very beginning, that's kind of the way it went. Now it is not allowing me, unfortunately, to go forward again like it did yesterday. Maybe move something away here. See if that helps. There we go. So here on the left, you can see that I'm just starting to figure out some lettering. But in the middle of that, I've got a little doodle on the right. I have a note that I saw a certain particular Lois Ehlert was a local Milwaukee artist who did fantastic children's books. Here, I'm playing around with lettering. A theme that I noticed that developed in my artwork, there are several, but rugs and weaving and braiding, that sort of thing, wheat, anything intertwined seems to crop up again and again. And it was interesting to note after a number of years that perhaps I should pay attention to that. What is that about the weaving and everything? And I decided that it really talks about my own inner need to integrate things, to bring things together. Here again, these are simply test pages. And on the right, I discovered that with Arches text wove, which is what this journal is made out of, Sharpie bleeds through. And so the next page looks like that. I decided not to cover it up because that was a good reminder to me not to do that again. So then on the right, I switched to gouache and started playing around with that instead. Gouache doesn't bleed through, neither does watercolor. It was another little sketch. Now, these pages are a mess, but who cares? I learned some things here. This is on the right. This was where I started playing around with laying down colors and overlaying white scribbles on top of the colors to unify the back of a piece and to mute it a bit. And that's something that I found very handy later in my work. I love origami. I've been doing that since I was a child. So I put my origami burns in there, including one that's flying away from the page. The thing on the right that looks kind of bluish that says April showers is actually a piece of aluminum plumber's tape, which is really fun to work with if you've never done it. It has an adhesive backing, so you just plop it down on your paper and then take a dead ballpoint pen or some sort of stylus, and you can draw right into it, and it's just is soft like butter, and so you can get all sorts of neat things into it by scribing into it. So that's what that was. Here on the left, we had our big Maine Coon cat Brooks, and in the second journal I'll show you I have a portrait of him. But we'd had Brooks for a number of years, and then my son brought home a stray named Sophia, and Brooks was not at all pleased. So my little sketch on a piece of paper that I pasted in there was Brooks just looking at me like, get her out of here. Eventually they became great friends, but initially Brooks was not pleased. And on the right, this is a messy page, but it's just quotations from a book that I was reading that I wanted to get down. And then, because if I have a pen anywhere near my hand, I start doodling to death. The whole rest of the page just got doodled to pieces. This one's a little more orderly, making a patchwork quilt of the quotations I wanted to remember from the book. And again, there's a piece on the right, a quotation by Julia Cameron, which I really liked. Don't like the calligraphy, but I like the quotation. And then some more lettering here. And this poem I cut out of Julia Cameron's book because it's so talked about how I wanted to be in the world. And I'll read it. It said, I wish I could take language and fold it like cool, moist rags. I would lay words on your forehead. I would wrap words on your wrists. There, my words would say, or something better. I would ask them to murmur hush and shh, it's all right. I would ask them to hold you all night. I wish I could take language and daub and soothe and cool where fever blisters and burns, where fever turns yourself against you. I wish I could take language and heal the words that were the wounds you have no names for. And that really spoke to me because I thought, wow, I wish I could do that with my words, with my drawing, with my calligraphy, to offer something to someone else that will really make a difference to them. Let's see. I keep having a pop-up saying someone is trying to request access to my computer. Sorry.
And Nancy, we have somebody that just added saying they were Nancy Hills. I'm going to remove them because they just came on.
Yeah, that's probably why I'm getting this pop-up, which is frozen my computer.
All right, I'm going to remove that person right now. It was very odd to see that.
Yeah, let's see if that will now unfreeze my computer. No, it's not. That's odd. All right, here we go. All right, good. Now I can go forward. Now this is interesting. Again, a total mess, but really fun things that I learned. In the conference at Harrisonburg, Virginia, I've forgotten who was giving the talk. Where is it? I think that was a year when we had Jan Reese and Peter Waters. But there was something, maybe it's on the next page. Oh, yes. Where this was my introduction to, on the left, where I have the funny Nome, Alaska with a G, my introduction to mushing letters together and using parts of certain letters to form parts of subsequent letters, like the G and N in gnome and the M and the E. And that became later a huge part of what I do in my drawn lettering. But this was the first time that I came across that. And so I'm really glad that I have that way back in 2006 to remind me of something I learned. And then on the right, in order to do something well, you must first be willing to do it badly over and over again. Yes. And I am willing to do things badly over and over again to get better. These were snippets from, I think, a class I was taking with Mike Kessig, and I pasted them in my journal, and then for some reason decided I was going to draw safety pins everywhere and make them look like they were block printed. And that's actually my favorite part of the page, is having all those little drawn safety pins doodled everywhere. More of that. Again, not a great drawing on the left, but who cares? On the right, sideways, is a lovely piece that Gwen Weaver lettered in my journal for me. Gwen was a very good friend, and we got to spend lots of time together in her later years before she died. And I cherish having that little piece in my journal. My first attempts with pointed pen, yuck, but there they are. It's just a record. I'm much more comfortable with broad-edged pens, and the lettering on the left was done with a Speedball B, and then the letters squared off with an EF66, I think. A little cartoon on the right. Again, bad page, which then I spilled water on, making it even worse. Oh well, it is what it is. I do enjoy Celtic knot work. So those were playing around with those and doodling to death, and then way over adding Celtic knots on the right to the quotations. Not a beautiful page. And I hated this page forever. Now I really love it. And it seems more poignant now than, pertinent now than ever, where, we have all of this salad of words and blood and mess going on, and yet somehow we have this one oasis of peace on earth, as a wish, as a hope, as an anchor. Well, this was something. This started out my travelogue pages. I had gone to visit Gwen Weaver again, and she had written me the little note on the right. And then I got stuck in the Atlanta airport for 5 hours and was bored. And so instead of writing out a lot of the things that we had done, I just started drawing words that would remind me of events. Gwen lived very near my sister, and so I would split the visit between the two of them when I went out there. And so this became a way for me to cram in a whole lot of memory in a very small place, and in a way that tells me the story I need to remember when I look at the words, but it also protects my privacy, because someone else looking in this only sees the words and doesn't know the story behind them. And so this became a way, through words and pictures, for me to be a little more protective of my privacy, especially as later my journals started to be shared. The word fear was me learning to play with one of those, I've forgotten now what they're called, the very broad pens. That little island magic thing was actually, it started out as something I was going to use for the envelope to send in my conference fees for that conference, but it didn't work out. But I liked it, so I put it in the journal. Sometimes I don't color them. These were notes from a workshop that Jean Wilson gave. I think it's very attractive. I've never wanted to color it in. This was Tyvek, where I took my initials NHH, lettered them with a brush, turned them sideways, and cut them out. And then the piece that I cut out, I put on the opposite page on the black. And I thought it was kind of attractive.
Nancy, at this point, there are a couple questions, and one of them is a soft pastel paper watercolor page and white letters. Basically, how do you get the white lettering to look so crisp? A couple of the questions refer to basically tools. Are you using ruling pens, folded nib? Do you paint the page first,
Oh,
etc.?
okay. All the paper in this journal is Arches Text Wove. My tools of choice, and thank you for whoever said the folded pen, because that's what the word I was trying to look for when I was describing that word fear that I had drawn. I use watercolor principally, and the black is usually some kind of waterproof pen, a Pigma Micron, a Zig, or there's the carbon fountain pen that is also waterproof. Those are usually my go-to blacks. The color is filled in as usually watercolor or gouache. The white, I'm not quite sure. This is Tyvek paper, which is white, and that's why that's so crisp, because the white on the right is the cutout from the white piece of paper on the left. So that's why that looks so crisp, because it's actually paper or Tyvek. Things like this are watercolor and probably a Pigma Micron. Or sometimes, for a while, I was using one of the Pilot G-Tex or C-Tex, which has a beautiful fine line, and I still like them, but they're not completely waterproof. So knowing that, you can make it work to your advantage, but it's really important that you know that before you draw something and then expect to color it in and not have the color run. The left was, I think that was at a lecture at Island Magic, maybe by Yves Leterme. I've forgotten what, but it's, and then Betty Locke gave a hilarious lecture one night at that conference. And one of the things she said that just practically had me on the floor was on the bottom right, where sometimes stretch pants have no other choice. And I thought, oh, I know that. This is one of my favorite pages. And this is where I began to use my journal as a meditation, because these are extremely detailed drawings and there's a lot of repetition in them. Those swirls around the plants are made by slowly putting dot after dot after dot down on the page. And because that takes such a long time and a lot of concentration, it began a way for me to be a way to slow down and simply live in the page for a long time and calm down. And repeating a pattern or repeating the dots for me became like a mantra in meditation. It was a way to still everything. And that has become really important to me because this is a way, my drawing is a way for me to meditate. As I said, I like origami. So I was drawing patterns to remember how to make something. Here again was a time when I was at visiting Gwen Weaver, and she had a young niece who was a teenager at the time. And she just thought the journal was the most wonderful thing and really, really wanted to be able to write something in it. So I gave her the left hand page to write in. And now I'm really glad I did because it's a beautiful memory. And she taught me how to do the pattern on the right hand side, the origami pattern. So this is Alex's page. Here on the left is another one of those travelogue pages where I drew a bunch of things that reminded me of my trip. And I love these things because I can still, after all these years, look at those pictures or the single words and remember what they're about. Occasionally I write a poem, so that went in there. More fun with Celtic knots. Here again on the right, I wanted to play around with the idea of making something that looked like it had been block printed when in fact it had been drawn. And I rather like the way it looks on the top right there. This is another one of my favorite pages. Again, one of those swirly meditation pages. And I don't plan my pages out. They kind of evolve over a number of days, sometimes over a number of weeks. It's just a matter of allowing something to come out, putting it on the page, and then working with it. That was a bunch of class notes, not meant to be pretty, but informational. There was a beautiful woman in the Chicago area many years ago named Marianne Falmer, who was also a member of our Wisconsin Guild. And Marianne died of cancer very early, and Marianne loved red, white, and blue. So my little tribute to her was this little thing on the bottom left when she died. Love goldfinches. Here's an example of something I did on the left, which did not work well, but it did exist as a meditative piece. And I did all of those scratchy things in the background on the left, but then redid it on the right. And this lettering is not cut out and pasted on there. I drew it so that it would look that way. And then in the background, I wrote all the kinds of words that we can say that tear ourselves down or tear others down. A lovely Da Vinci quote. And that again, I did pencil shading. The letters are not cut out, so the outlines around the letters is just the paper. And the right-hand side, it actually says what's tugging at your interior sleeve, which is something to meditate on. But my goodness, what I ended up drawing looks rather like an eye chart. And I don't know, but there was anyway. Again, total mess, just experimenting. These were experiments with gel pens to see what I could do with them. Not bad, but there it is. This is near the end of the journal. On the left is another one of those travelogue pages. I'm not quite sure what the mice and all the marbles are, but I don't know. There it is. The left is a copy of an envelope that I sent to George Deaver, I think. And this on the left was a drawing for a commission for this grand opening stained glass thing on the right that I did. I love pencil and watercolor. And on the left, the Karen word, that's all pencil and then watercolored over the pencil. On the right, it's kind of funny. Being heavily involved in the church and in the Christian church, Easter and Easter week is the busiest time of the year. And I ended up getting a gallstone stuck in my bile duct over Good Friday before Easter and ended up having to have emergency surgery. And so all of Easter weekend, I was in the hospital. And so as I was waiting to be released, I started drawing the gallbladder. And then because it was Easter, I just started putting Easter eggs all over the gallbladder and behind it and through it. And, you have to make things funny. So that was that. More water. I did this quick brush thing on the right, intending to make something out of it. And instead, I just really liked it the way it was. So I left it. Some lettering that I pasted in from other things that I'd done. And that's really the end of this journal. And so now let's see if I can go back and share the second one. It may take me a moment to get that one up.
While you're bringing that up, one of the questions is about the size of your journal. What size are you working in?
The one that we just looked at, I'll show you, is relatively small. It's about this big, so about the size of my head, which
And you make your own journals, by the way.
Yes, this one I did, and the second one I'll show you I did. So this one is about 8 by 6.5 ish in size. The second one is about, I think it's closer to 8.5 by 11. And I thought I had that one up already, but let me just grab it again. All right. Let's see if I can share screen. All right, can you see that?
Yes, we still see it's not full screen.
All right, let's give it a try and see if I can make it full screen. It says no. When I hit Command L, it just beeps at me.
Oh dear.
I'll try it one more time.
Did you click on the PDF first?
There you are.
Just to make sure.
You're set. It's all set.
All right, awesome. I don't know why I did the same thing over and over again. And sometimes it doesn't produce insanity, it produces results. So this is the cover of the lettering's added, but This is the beat up cover of my great big journal. And so this is, as you can tell, it took me from 2009 to 2021 to complete it. And here my drawing skills have improved a bit. I started out using it at the beginning for class notes. And here's that portrait of Brooks, my cat, that was on the piece of yellow lined paper before. I took a wonderful class with Karen Akoff on very detailed watercolor painting. And so these were the results from that class. And I absolutely loved it, and I will never do it again. Here's an interesting thing where on the right, there's this travelogue page, and on the left, I tipped in a piece of Oriental paper. I forgot what kind it is, mulberry maybe. Anyway, but in the middle where the wording September is, the background behind there is not the paper. That is watercolor that I painted to match the tipped in paper so that I could bring the look all the way across the seam. And I was really tickled at how it worked out because it does look like the paper, I think. Here are those rugs and weaving type of things I was talking about before. And on something like this, these pages are super, super complicated. But the page on the left-hand side started actually with drawing that fish that's about in the middle right of the page. And I might have only done one little square a day. So it wasn't as if I sat down and had this monumental thing planned out. It was just a way to get my hand moving in the page for a few minutes. Again, more meditative leaves and colors, and a recipe for spinach souffle. You know, it all goes together. Excuse me. I love drawn lettering. So you can see some of that on the left. Again, more rug-like pages. Here I had this grand idea that I would do one square every day, and I was going to be really disciplined about this. So on the left, you can see 20, 21, 22, 3, 4, 5. And then I petered out after that. Most of the time when I make a mistake in my journal, it just stays and I find a way to cover it up or work with it. On the left is, I think, the only example of having done an illumination that I really liked with the word the lettering that I did around it, I really messed up. And so I ended up relettering it and pasting it in over the bad lettering. But very, very rarely do I do that. I usually let what happens stay there. On the right here, on the word sky in the middle right, that is an effect that you can get if you use one of the Pilot G-Techs and you do your lettering and then go back with a water-filled brush. You can pull some of the color out of the lines of the lettering to give you a light wash behind it. And so you can make that work to really good effect when you know it can happen. And the same on the left-hand page, the top right of the left-hand page, where it says soul. That blue, a lot of it was pulled out of the blue pen lettering and drawing. And I did supplement that a little bit with more watercolor, but mostly it came right from the pen. This started out as a drawing in my backyard. There was a pile of bricks and some random corn growing. I started sketching that, and then it kind of went on from there. Another recipe, couple recipes. There are a number of memorials that pop up in my journals. The little beaded tree was something that my sister was experimenting with making, and they were really pretty. And so I drew one, and at the same time, I got news that a friend of mine had died. So I just made that a little memorial medallion for him. Oh, here, top left was what I was talking about with the Japan earthquake. So you can see I drew the word earthquake all getting broken up and the tsunami wave. There was a huge tornado in the city of Joplin, which caused great destruction in the town. And so around the word Joplin are below it is just a heap of houses and people and crushed things. And on the right is another traumatic event that, just remains something that I don't speak of, but it's there as a reminder to me. Here were class notes that I embellished from a workshop with Sharon Zeugen, who's absolutely wonderful. If you ever have a chance to take something with her, I highly recommend it. A travelogue page on the left, piece of calligraphy on the right that the client rejected, so I kept because I liked it. Class notes. Here's some more class notes. Experiments. Cream City Calligraphers I did a couple of covers for them, one for May and then here one for October. The page on the right is another attempt in January 2013 of me trying to do something every day. So there were, you can see 1 through 12 and 13 there. And I kept going up until, I don't know, 25, I think, throughout this spread. And then I think it petered out again. But I really love the colors on this and the way the two pages interact with each other. And even though each number has its own section, I think they come together very nicely. It looks like I actually made it to February, oh, maybe February 6th, something. On the right hand side, where I have my cat throwing up near the bottom, that is one way that you make a mistake funny. I didn't like what was underneath that, so I drew the cat throwing up and scribbled all over it, so looking like a hairball, and just made it part of the design, and it kind of went with the dots above it in the word ashes. So it all came together and it became kind of a funny mistake. I like little silly animals, noting our 18th wedding anniversary that year. I see I never fixed it. I had on the left, top left, I had February 20th, 20 something, 2013, and I probably wrote 12 and had to wipe it out and never went back and put in the correct date, which I just never noticed until right now. More events and doodles. Then the on the left-hand side of the page and near the middle, that black area opposite the stones. That was another mistake. And so I just covered it up and made it into a rain shower and went with it. On the right, there were a couple little memorial pages. This is a notes from a class, lovely class with Harvest Crittenden. And at one point, there must have been a lull in the class because I ended up drawing the outline of my French curve and painting it in while I was waiting for something else. I was probably waiting for something to dry. So anything can become a tool. Notes from a first class with Carla Sondheim in 2013. And she was an amazing teacher. And some of the things I teach in my class were gems I pulled and made my own from her class. She's a wonderful, freeing teacher to take classes from. This was the memorial page on the left for Gwen Weaver when she died. Class notes from whenever Annie Sicali, I've forgotten what year that was, but anyway, on the bottom of this, the peacock is actually made from a protractor, and every 10 degrees I ticked off, and those became the peacock feathers. And then things start to get a little more serious. On the right, in March of 2015, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And some of this, it seems as if it was written at the time, but actually it was written a little bit later because I was too sick at the time with chemo and operations and all the rest to get much down. But I did want to have an account since this was a huge, huge event in my life. And much later, I drew the rug on the left. And what I wrote made sense to me, even though I can see how it appears controversial to some other people. When I said cancer is the vehicle God is using to restore me to myself. And what I meant by that was not that God had anything to do with the cancer, because I don't believe that at all. But nonetheless, my life I was under such stress at work, and my life had just become very, very busy and full and not fulfilling. And when I got cancer, all that was taken away from me, and I was reduced to having to do nothing for long periods of time. And that was a helpful turning point in me to reprioritize what to reintroduce into my life when I did get better. And so I began to restore those good parts of myself that had gotten pushed to the side because I was so busy and stressed and all of the rest of it. So that's where that came from. And many of the designs surrounding this, the words are designs borrowed from African slave quilts. And they all talked about liberation and freedom. And to me, that's what I was being given, was another chance to liberate myself from what had been really making me sick, not only the cancer, but my way of life, and becoming more free. So that's why I put those in there. Suzanne Moore's class, that was my first foray out in public after about a year. I was still bald, I was weak, but it was a wonderful class. And so I kind of drew that over on the right, talking about vulnerable strength. And then partway through my cancer treatment, my mother died. rather quickly. And so the candle on the bottom left represents her life being broken off a little too soon and quickly. And then on the right, I embraced the word re, because as I was beginning to be restored, I just started pondering all those re words and what they could mean for my life. Rejoice, respect, remember, rekindle, restore, rejuvenate, rewind, reveal, on and on. So I just started playing with that, all these ways to restart, to get going again. I had a second chance at living. And that led to this little piece on the left, which was a series of haikus about my cancer journey. And then the plants, which are very bright and vibrant on the bottom, are all upside down. And to me, that represented the fact that my life had been turned upside down. But even upside down, it was well and thriving. Many of you remember Amy Michaels, who was going through her own cancer journey. And so, and that symbol on the right, the blue spiral, was something that was important to her. And then in June of 2016, I was ordained. And I was very happy. And I started writing that out. And I wrote July 11th, not June 11th. And I thought, oh, for pity's sake. And so I took gouache and my pens and scribbled it all out above where it says June 11th, and left part of it because it was funny that I messed it up, but also then incorporated it into the rest of the design of the page. So that's how I dealt with that mistake. Wonderful class with Georgia Angelopoulos, my notes from that. About a year after my mother died, a year and 3 days, in fact, my dad died. And dad was the person that I was very, very close to. And he made my house, he made home for me. And so I drew a little nest with eggs in it to represent my dad, because he represented home to me. And then 3 days after dad died, my little great niece, Lila Jean Porter, was born. And so below the banner that says, I love you, to the left, I made a little tiny bird. So she hatched out of the nest. And I did miss my father a lot. And this little quote by Brian Andreas, I really loved. It said, after his father died, he carried his life more gently and left an empty space for the birds and other creatures. And so my dad had really light baby blue eyes. So that space below that's empty and blue is for my dad. On the right, simply letter play and doodling. A lovely poem that Sherry Moot sent me by Stuart Kesselbaum, I think his name is. More class notes. This was Gemma Black. This was the Utah conference. Then the time came for me to have to dismantle my parents' house. So this word on the left is actually the word homes. And there are a bunch of bricks behind it, and it's all coming apart. And I'm kind of going quickly now because I know we're out of time. More class notes. That was Montreal, I think. So you can see it's just a mishmash. Memorial page on the left of drawn lettering. Another memorial on the right for someone else. Playing with lettering on the left on a piece of craft paper, which I then pasted into the book. And then I started playing with the Kemper tool even more. and all the little birds are drawn with the Kemper tool and Bister inks. This was a class that was really eye-opening and expanding for me from Mike Gold, who went nuts with his letters. And this just really set me free. And it's nothing like any other page in my journals. But wow, was that eye-opening. And so then I began playing more with that. And then at the end is a drawn lettering page, the last page of the journal. So let's see if I can stop my share. I know we're out of time.
Well, we
I
can.
could go on for another hour, but I don't want
Yeah.
to.
And your last slide, thank you for noting on there that, this is your work and not to copy it or share it. So that's an important message that you had on your last slide. Thank you. Did you want to go to your desktop? You had a couple things you wanted to share.
Oh, I have plenty I could share. I don't want to, keep anybody, but yes, let me.
I know we're getting great comments in here about how stunning your work is, so inspirational, um, just awesome, so inspiring. Thank you very much for sharing these. You'll get a copy of the chat too. I'll make sure that I send that to you.
Oh, lovely. That would be super. All right, let me see if I can share my
Because we want to show that Kemper tool also.
oh yes. So this is the Kemper tool. It's called a Kemper fluid writer as well. And that's what I use a lot to do my drawn lettering. For some of the larger stuff, when it gets to about half an inch or below, I will then go back to a pointed pen. But the Kemper tool is just this marvelous, versatile thing that I just can't say enough about. So it allows me, for example, here, this is not a hand made by me journal. This is a Mahara watercolor journal book that I actually sawed in half. I wouldn't recommend that. It's falling apart because I killed the binding.
Are
But
these
all of this lettering is with the Kemper tool.
are these the journals that Randy Hassan uses in his workshops?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I could see why you would cut it. They are huge journals.
They're absolutely huge. But this particular shape allowed me to, play in a different way. And so this is more of the drawn lettering.
Plus, it's such great paper to work on.
Yeah, it's a challenge sometimes. Um, this was all done with the Kemper tool just for me to try to test what on earth I could do with it, and how small I could go, and little doodads. Again, this is now, I moved with these two pages. I went to golden fluid acrylic instead of watercolor, and was working with acrylic and the Kemper tool, which is beautiful. It works very nicely. I love the freedom that, you can do huge thicks and thins and expand your letters, et cetera, et cetera. And a message to myself, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Let's see what else might be interesting in here. Well, here's another drawn lettering with a gold gouache background. Oh, golly. Oh, this is, again, watercolor drawn with the Kemper tool. So all of the little squares, there there's pencil shading as well, but all of the shapes were drawn with the Kemper tool. This, I think I went down to a pointed pen because it was getting just a little bit small. So you can see these particular journal pages are different from my early ones. They're more experimental, um, just trying out new things. So this is something I haven't finished. It was just an experiment with some kind of ink that bled all over the place. So I'll have to fix that. But this block of lettering is kind of nice. And really, that's about as far as I've gotten in that one. So I did make another Arches Textual journal. And that one, this one is, let's see what I just do with my ruler. This one's about 10 by 6.5. And again, drawn lettering. I love the fact that you can fit lettering into anything and make it into drawings.
You know, Nancy, one of the questions Bonnie has is about loading the Kemper tool with watercolor, or what fluids can you use in the Kemper tool and what
I
not to
haven't
use?
I haven't found a fluid you can't use in it yet. The only caveat, when you're using liquid acrylics, I keep it very wet. And then if the acrylic does dry in the Kemper tool, it does come with a little reamer cleaner. But solvents such as you would find in 409 or Fantastic Cleaner will clean it out. So far, I haven't found anything that doesn't work in it.
Good. I know when you taught those online classes on your journals, that's when you introduced me to the Kemper tool. And I really love working with it. It's a great tool.
I think it's a great addition to a calligrapher's repertoire.
Yes.
Um, More drawn lettering. And I was going back a bit to my first love of pencil and watercolor. Um, I had to have a second operation in 2023 to remove the rest of my breasts, for not because the cancer came back, but because of other health reasons where the scarring was beginning to pin my arm to my chest. So anyway, little pictures like this, just, record the event. That was kind of fun. This was done with a pointed pen. The Kemper was a bit too big for this.
Now
I
this
could
is
have done it in a pinch.
now this was not done in one sitting, was it?
This one actually was,
Oh
but
my goodness.
it took hours.
Oh my goodness.
But then here's something that's much freer and unplanned, and I don't like it that much, but it was just another way of experimenting with no interlineal space and seeing what kind of designs the letters would make all crushed together. Like you can see, I made the point of making really big fat O's so that those would kind of pop out in the page, just seeing what would happen. Here I decided to turn the lettering with a quotation. So turned a quarter turn each time and kind of made a woven patchwork out of the lettering. And because it didn't all fit on this page, I finished the quotation over there. Then I really got into those Posca pens, the extra fine. And so started doing little drawings with those. Here's another one here with the stones. Experiments with two-handed drawing, which I can talk about another time. Here's a travelogue page from the last conference in where
Oh,
were we?
Roman holiday.
Yeah, thank you. um, and so these are all little things. I took a marvelous class with Lisbeth Bodens and then a watercolor class after that. And so here's a little mini color copy of the piece I did in Lisbeth's class. And I had some medical emergency there. So there's an
Oh,
ambulance there. And then we had a great rainstorm, and Amity and I shared an umbrella when we were running somewhere. So just little snippets like that are in there to remind me of the beautiful week.
and Lisbeth is here today.
Yes. Um, and also just for the fun of it, because Lisbeth loved the color red and always had a red scarf. I put a red scarf over the portfolio because Lisbeth had borrowed the portfolio to take her stuff to market night. So, all just little tiny little things like that. The bird is in there because in the watercolor class, that was the prop that I was using to do the exercise. So, all sorts of fun little things you can plop in your journal that, unless I told you about them, you wouldn't know why they were there, but I do. Um, More two-handed drawing. Zoom out a little bit. Um, Combining that with Kemper lettering. And not everything's pleasant. I said, today I tripped over my ego and fell headfirst into the thorns of my trauma. It hurt a lot. It is kind of funny, but it was true. Um, and so the poor little guy's looking with compassion up to the poor sad person. Class notes, haven't done anything with that page. It was a test with gesso and matte medium. More class notes. These are just all things quotations that I want to remember. That was a fun thing. That was Kemper as well. This was pencil and acrylic. It was in a class with Randy Hassan. And this was a whole big complicated page that just had to do with some tough stuff I was dealing with. And so I wrote it out. And, it's my journal. I can do what I want. Here I painted the background with a buff colored watercolor ground and lettered over the top of that, which was very scratchy and really, really pleasant to write on. And then here I started, was sort of looking for a theme. And I thought maybe my theme for this year would be small bites, which for me is an evolving concept, but really slowing down and being in the moment and taking things one small bite at a time and being more aware of things. So,
Well, Nancy, why don't we turn this over to everyone here to see who might have some questions?
All
And
right.
I will I will stop sharing your screen. So I'll
There we go.
remove the spotlight so everybody can turn on their video, unmute themselves, and ask you questions.
All right. I am not. Let's see.
Make sure that you're in gallery view. You may still be in speaker, but I did unspotlight you.
So this is the time for people to unmute if they wish. Wow, look at you all.
All right, so questions, if any of you have. I know I tried to answer as many of the questions that I saw in the chat. If I missed let's see. The last one from Anne is, has your choice of content or your relationship changed as your journals have become so popular?
That's a very important question, Ashley, because yes, for a number of years, I could barely do anything in my journals because I was so hampered by the idea that someone might see them. And so it took me a long time to work through that and to get back to a point where I could reclaim them for myself and not care. But it really was a journey and it was painful because that publicity really inhibited my artwork for quite a while.
Someone has some background noise, whoever you are, if you could mute yourself. We hear some bubbling in the background. Thank you. Other questions?
Other questions?
I don't
You
know
know,
about everybody else, but I'm just speechless. It's just beautiful. Thank you so much.
well, thank you. Sally was asking
So
if there was a
inspiring. Yeah.
time. Thank you. Sally was asking whether there was a time during the day when, I was more creative. And unfortunately, I seem to get a second wind at about 9 p.m., which is not a good thing. But I do tend to do really concentrated work late at night or into the wee hours of the morning. I've also found that if I do actually go to bed and get some sleep, I do have a much better time concentrating and doing things in the early, like 6, 7 a.m. hours of the morning as well. So I don't know what it is about the single digit times, whether they're at the beginning of the day or the end, that seem to be my most creative. And it didn't used to be that way because I had a 9 to 5 job and I had to be at work at 7 and, I had to go to bed.
How do you use that Kemper tool? Are you drawing your letters, outlining them, and then going back in with
Yes.
pigment? Okay.
Yeah. And the Kemper tool is nice because the line that you get, it's a lovely monoline and it's not terribly thin. And so when you draw a letter on the page, the watercolor or ink or whatever you're using is still wet. So then you can come in with a brush with color on it and paint on the inside. And as long as you don't cross over the line that you've made, it will all flow together and the outline will disappear into the body of the letter.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
If you let it dry, then it won't.
Right. And you use all kinds of fluids, watercolor and
I use
calligraphy ink?
principally watercolor, gouache, and liquid acrylic.
Okay.
Michelle Golder, thank you for coming. You must be asleep by now.
I know that when I took your workshop, Nancy, you listed Kemper tools. So I went to Blick Art Supply, and the gentleman I was talking to didn't know what it was, but he put it in the computer. They had it, and he goes, "Wow, tool that I've never seen before." So I was able to purchase it, and like I said, I love working with it. And Barbara,
Yeah.
I agree with what you said. When we were at Rendezvous and Nancy had brought a couple of her journals, and a group of us met in one of the tents at Rendezvous to see it. It was just to see her work was amazing. I'm going to spotlight this.
One thing I would caution you when you're going online to buy a Kemper tool, both of these were listed as 0.5 millimeter Kemper tools. And sort of technically they are, but obviously this is monstrous. This is not the one you want to get unless you're going to do car detailing or something. So this is the one. And they're readily available on Amazon. There is one is called large and one is called fine. I'm not talking about this one. This one is called large. There is also one like this that has a very coppery colored handle. That is the fine one. which you can use, but it is much, much harder to control because it is so fine and the watercolor and paint tends to clog in the tip. So this is the one that I would recommend if you're getting one.
And Alex has a question. Do you want to unmute yourself, Alex?
Yes, thank you. And Anne answered this question. I put it in the side, but I forgot my 3 question marks.
Oh.
When you said that I asked for what books you might recommend if they weren't handmade, and she gave me a link to something, that one that you cut in half, I think she said.
Yeah, that one. And the one that, if you don't mind spending a bit of money, the paper that I have found that I absolutely love the best, apart from my own handmade journals, is the Etcher watercolor books.
Etcher or Edger?
Etcher, ETCHR, I think.
Okay.
And it has this little logo of a llama or something.
Oh, how
on the front
cute.
of it.
Okay.
And I really, really like them.
Thank
They
you.
are expensive.
It was a beautiful presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to ask or say? Or
I'm just curious about your watercolor choices. What is your, you have such beautiful blending of your watercolor. What is your favorite or go-to watercolor?
oh my gosh, I've had so many lately. I usually buy tubes and then squish them out into a palette and then use them as pan watercolors. But Daniel Smith, Golden, a lot of my.
Do you ever use Gansai Tombi?
Did they come out with the ones that were kind of grayed out colors, or I mean colors with black
Yes,
added to them?
they did, but their standard palette is just a standard they're a little bit more opaque. So there's sort of like a combination between watercolor and gouache.
Oh,
I was just curious if you used them.
no, I've used the shadow colors, which I really like. But I haven't used those. And I do love gouache, and gouache to me is just lovely for lettering. And then I did find though that if when I'm doing my drawings and I want to add white later, the best thing I have found to add white with is the extra fine Posca pen. It had to be the most opaque and it is waterproof. The Uni Posca, this one, I really have found works beautifully. But watercolor and pencil to me are such a nice combination because they're soft and they blend together. There are some days that I don't feel soft and blended, and then I will go to gouache or acrylic or inks and really amp up the colors or do much more, emotional type of writing. So it just kind of depends on what I'm feeling that day.
Good. And Jane Shibata, thank you. She put in the chat, she put in a comment about the Gansai watercolor are specifically made to paint the Japanese style of painting called Nihonga. That is why they are opaque. So Jane Shibata, thank you for that comment.
If I ever work through all the 95 million supplies I have, maybe I'll try those out too. And one of the things, for those of you who are interested in taking the class in September, one of the questions that I didn't see come up is, how do you get started on a page and how do you overcome the terror of that blank page? And part of what I started doing this workshop for was to provide us a few tricks and entryways into making that happen on the page. Because it is terrifying. And whenever I start a new journal, it's just awful because And it finally dawned on me that you don't have to start on the first page. You can start in the middle.
Yeah. So that workshop will be open to Friends of Calligraphy members. So if you're not a member, now's a good time to join. The workshop will be September 24th, 25th, and 26th. And Nancy and I are still in the early stages of if it's gonna be 2 days of journals and 1 day of Celtic knots, or we're still sort of in the planning stage. And the flyer will come out probably, Nancy, I think maybe early June we might post the workshop. So if you're interested, it is in person. It is not a Zoom
Nancy,
workshop.
do you know the venue yet, where it will be?
Yes, it's going to be at the Arlington Community Church up in Kensington, which is above Berkeley. So
Oh.
it's where we hold most of our FOC workshops. It's a beautiful, huge, well-lit room, and many of you here know that area, but it's in Kensington,
Wow, thanks.
right above Berkeley. But it is in person, it's not hybrid. We need to get back to doing more in-person workshops, and Nancy's looking forward to coming out here. We're going to meet with Carl one day. As you know, Carl is the editor of Alphabet, and his spread in here for Nancy is fabulous.
Yeah, and he really is responsible for putting my name out there, and I will be eternally grateful to him for that.
Yeah,
one of the things we also will be doing in the workshop is spending quite a bit of time playing with the camera tool and learning the various ways that you can begin experimenting with your lettering.
Yeah.
And someone had a question about, when you've already done something nice on a page and you're not done with the page and you get terrified of messing the page up. A lot of times I'll just leave the page until such time as I'm brave enough to go back, because in my journals, they don't have to be sequential. If something's not ready or I'm not ready, I just leave it until I am. There's no pressure. No, there aren't any rules.
I loved all your corrections on the oopses. I think that's such a good skill. I mean, you think, oh my gosh, I have to leave it now. I can't use that. But man, oh man, some of your coverages were just gorgeous. Thank you.
And it's really important to be able to laugh at yourself. And
oh yeah.
When we all mess up. We're going to. We're humans. It happens. Yeah. So it's not the messing up that counts. It's what you do with it afterwards that counts.
So true.
And many times when you don't like it, walk away and look at it another day, and you go, "Oh, it's not so bad after all."
Yeah.
Yeah. I came across some artwork that I had done in junior high, and I was looking at it thinking, that wasn't that bad. And at the time, I didn't think it was anything at all.
Right.
In fact, when we cleaned out my parents' house, I found this. This was something I did probably in junior high. It was a block print. And
wow.
And it was beautiful. A linoleum block print. And this is
everybody.
Anyway, moving on.
Yes, thank you.
But this was if you want to spotlight me for a second.
Yes.
This was
hold on.
There we go. So this was, when I'm trying to look on the back. Oh, I guess I must have been in grade 10, it says.
That was when you were doing those courses with Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah, although this was art class at school.
Okay.
And I just thought, that was pretty amazing. And that was before I got interested in calligraphy, and I was just trying to write letters. And so
we'll watch it together. It's amazing.
It's just amazing what things happen. Okay.
One other question, if we didn't want to talk about some of the other questions that people have, how did you develop your signature lettering style? Was it just inspired by any particular calligrapher or?
Oh gosh, there were so many, but well, you know what? I said that, Mike Gold kind of blew my mind with his lettering style. And then Lisbeth Bodens and her siblings and the Bruges School of Lettering was a huge influence for waking me up to the fact that lettering didn't have to be done with a broad edge pen. And my love of drawing had always compelled me to try, before I knew anything about calligraphy pens, I remember trying to draw the Old English lettering titles at the top of the hymnal we had at home, just drawing them out with pencil. And as it turns out, that was a pretty good practice. If you want to learn the shape of a letter, drawing it out really does help you with that. And all of my early training, I had during that whole Carnegie Mellon session, in 11th grade, I believe, I had an italic class for the year with who's the big, Myrna Rosen, when Myrna Rosen was a graduate student at the time. So this was a long time ago. And I learned a basic italic from her, and I still have a little book that we made, and it's absolutely terrible. That one I won't show, but that launched my love of letters, and I've come a long way since then. I think the other thing that's been a huge, huge influence is going to graphic design school at a time before computers and studying typography. Mm-hmm. And having to set type by hand and compose type by hand really gave me an amazing foundation for looking at counter spaces and the spaces between letters and how they relate to each other and what a difference interlinear spacing makes to the character of a piece and all of that, which computers now sort of automatically do for one, even though in my later years with graphic design, when I was composing text, I was always realigning my headlines because the kerning that regular computers do, even in advanced programs, don't always cut it. The human eye has a much better idea of how those things go together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Raul, raise your hand for a minute. Raul is our webmaster for the Friends of Calligraphy, and I will be sending the link to him today. He will turn it into a YouTube, and it'll be available on the FOC website. So you'll be able to find that, and if you wish to watch her presentation again, or for the people that, a number of people signed up that couldn't make it because it's 3 a.m. in the morning. Helene, I don't know what time it is there for you in Sweden, but you and a number of people that are here, Elizabeth from Europe, thank you for staying awake so late.
Helene. Well, it's only 8:30, so that's all right.
8:30 what?
8 in the evening.
Oh.
So it's not too bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I was literally stuck in snow, so that's why I was a bit late.
Okay.
So, Helene, where are you?
In Norway, in Oslo.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Will and it be possible? I love this. Your work is absolutely amazing. Oh, wow is my response.
Will it be possible when the video is put up to edit out the little interruptions?
Oh yes, we definitely will be.
Of course, yes, that will be edited out.
That will not be on there. And you know, we have been bombed in the past. We've learned certain things, but we've never had someone come in with your name or Raul's name before, and it's just.
I've never had that either. That was very strange.
And we will be reporting this to Zoom because this is not.
Yeah, that was weird.
So apologies, and just like I said, we're constantly trying to watch and being very careful of what we have. Again, we have Evelyn Eldridge, who's our president, she's here, and Claudia Cruz, who is a member of FOC. Claudia, raise your hand. We all stay in the background trying to mute people that are unmuted, or being careful of who we let in. And somehow this is a whole new one coming in as your different names and all of that. But I want to thank everyone. Oh, yes, Calder.
I think Calder has a question.
He does.
Thank you. I had a question about the process of which you're laying first, or are you mixing it once in a while? If you would do the outline first with the pen and then come in with the watercolor, or if oftentimes you actually maybe sketch with a pencil, come in with watercolor, and then ink over watercolor to not make it bleed.
My process with the Kemper tool is to do the outline lettering with the Kemper tool and then flow the watercolor in, and it never does bleed. When I'm doing my watercolor in pencil, it's more like a coloring book. I draw in pencil first and then paint over it with watercolor.
And then do you come back in with a black outline to do the outlining?
Oh, when I'm using a black outline, again, that's more like, usually the black outline is first if I'm doing watercolor. If I am using something else like gouache, often I will come back again and outline at the end in black because the gouache will have obliterated it.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of depends on the medium.
Okay. And so you're using a specific black pen that's not going to bleed when you're hitting it with the watercolor.
Yeah, usually I use like a Pigma Micron,
mm-hmm.
or there's a company called there's a company called Platinum, not Platinum, but Platinum, that makes a carbon fountain pen. It's called a carbon pen. It looks like this. And that also it's a pointed nib, very stiff.
Nice.
And it has waterproof ink. The waterproof carbon ink is fabulous, and it doesn't move for anything once it's dry. So I use that a lot too.
And that's a platinum fountain pen?
Platinum carbon fountain pen. So if you look up carbon fountain pen, you'll find it. And then you can also buy bottles of the carbon ink if you wanted to use it with a different pen.
Nancy, do you take commissions or otherwise sell your work?
No. And part of the reason is because I am still working, in the church, and my time is limited. I don't feel like I can devote my time and energy to that. And spending 30 some years in the graphic design business, where I had to do what everyone else wanted, whether I liked it or not, kind of cured me of wanting ever to do a commission again. So most of the stuff I do is really small scale, one-off stuff in the journals. Occasionally I'll make cards and sell them, but generally the big stuff, no, I don't do that. And it's simply a personal choice. And I don't feel too bad about it because there are so many brilliant people out there doing it. And I love looking at their stuff.
Calder, Ann put in a link for that pen in the chat. You might see it there. If any of you want to save the chat, go to the top and there's 3 dots and click on that and it says save chat if you want to review that. Because a number of you have put in links to different tools, etc. So you can save the chat, go back, click on those links and have access. And the other thing, Calder, is I always have pieces of that, whatever paper I'm working on, and I can test, is that pen waterproof? And I'll put water over it and I'll go, oh, it's not. So I always test it.
Good plan.
Yeah. All right. I think it's 11:45. So we're going to say thank you so much for being here. And sometime tomorrow we'll have the link up, hopefully. And Raul, thank you very much for taking care of this, and we will edit out the inappropriate material. And just again, Nancy, thank you for agreeing to do your talk, because like I said at Rendezvous, when we got to see your journal, I'm like, That's it. We need you in our speaker series. We have Suzanne Moore, who is our speaker in March. And again, Evelyn, our president, thank you so much for coming up with this concept of doing the lecture series throughout COVID. But we didn't stop it because it seems to be something very popular. So, yes, Claudia.
Nancy, I just wanted to remind people that Nancy Hill's talk here was very inspirational and very connected in many ways to the upcoming Marina Soria workshop that we have January 31st and February 1st. We're looking for a couple of more participants.
And it's Zoom.
Called Weaving Words, and it also focuses on tapestry and calligraphy and their connection. So
Yeah, that looked really cool. I wish I lived closer.
Oh, that's right. It's in person. It's not Zoom, correct?
Yeah, it is in person. Yeah. So,
And
but I think the connection there, I couldn't help but note.
Yeah.
And thank you all for coming and sticking around for so long. I know we've gone way over, and I'm really grateful for your attention. And I want to give a special shout out to Lisbeth Bodens, who is here, who is dear to my heart. And I'm so gratified that you came, and all of you from around the world. I am just so touched, and thank you so much. And I hope
Nancy.
I get to see a lot of you in September.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Yes, thank you. I can't imagine spending a better hour and a half.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. Fabulous.
And we will have an article. I'll be producing the bulletin for March, the FOC bulletin. And so Evelyn, our author of all of our lecture series,
Jesse
will be writing an article. So we will have a recap of today's lecture in the next bulletin. And Jesse Evans does a fabulous job every time.
Cool.
She is our go-to writer for our lecture series. All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Early lunch.
Bye.
So much.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.